Close your eyes for just a second. When I say the word samurai, what do you see? Chances are you are picturing a fierce warrior standing on a misty battlefield. He is clad in intricate, terrifying iron armor. He grips a gleaming katana, ready to fight to the death. It's a powerful image, isn't it? It is the romanticized Hollywood vision we have all been fed through blockbuster movies, anime, and pop culture. We see the samurai as the ultimate unflinching killing machines, bound by an ancient, unbreakable moral code. But what if I told you that the true power of the samurai, the reason they still command immense global respect today, was not found in how they swung their swords? What if their greatest legacy was actually found in how they lived when those swords were sheathed? Today, we are going to look behind the sharp steel and the iconic masks. We are going to explore the truth about Bushido, the way of the warrior. We're going to separate the historical reality from the cinematic myth, uncover its darkest shadows, and discover why this ancient philosophy is exactly what the modern world needs. The pragmatic killer versus the philosopher. To truly understand Bushido, we first have to ground ourselves in historical reality, and the reality is a bit messy. If you were to time travel to Japan's Sengoku period, the brutal warring states era of the 15th and 16th centuries, you might be deeply disappointed by the samurai you met. During this era of constant bloody civil war, the ultimate virtue wasn't honor, it was survival. Let's be candid. Many samurai of this era were pragmatists. They were often opportunistic and sometimes deeply treacherous. Loyalty to a feudal lord lasted exactly as long as that lord was winning. They were, first and foremost, professional mercenaries trying to survive in a meat grinder of a century. So where did the noble, unwavering code of Bushido actually come from? Here is the great irony of the samurai. The strict moral code we associate with these warriors was largely formalized during an era of profound peace. In the early 1600s, a warlord named Tokugawa Ieyasu finally unified Japan. This sparked the Edo period, over 2.5 centuries of relative peace. Suddenly, the samurai found themselves dealing with a massive existential crisis. They were the elite warrior class of a nation that no longer had any wars to fight. They were out of a job. To justify their high status in a peaceful society, the samurai had to transform. They traded the battlefield for the classroom. They became bureaucrats, administrators, politicians, and scholars, and they needed a new purpose. Thinkers of the time began blending three profound philosophies: the nature worship and purity of indigenous Shintoism, the fierce mental discipline and detachment of Zen Buddhism, and the strict social hierarchy and respect of Confucianism. The result was Bushido. It wasn't a written constitution that you could read in a library. It was an unwritten, deeply internalized standard of human excellence. It was the answer to the question, who is a warrior when there are no enemies left to kill? Even more tragically, we saw what happens when this beautiful philosophy is corrupted. In the lead-up to World War II, the Japanese military government hijacked the concept of Bushido. They purposefully stripped away the virtues of Jin, compassion, and Ji, justice. Instead, they weaponized a twisted version of Chugi, blind, fanatical loyalty to the emperor. This manipulated code fueled the horrors of the Pacific War, the brutal treatment of prisoners, and the tragic flights of the kamikaze pilots. It is a sobering historical lesson. Any philosophy, no matter how noble, becomes a weapon of mass destruction when you separate it from its moral anchor. The modern samurai. So why are we still talking about this today? The samurai class was officially abolished in the 1870s. Carrying swords in public is illegal. The world has moved on. Yet Bushido still commands global respect because the spirit of the code addresses a fundamental human craving. In a modern world filled with shifting moral landscapes, instant gratification, and a desperate lack of accountability, the uncompromising nature of Bushido is a breath of fresh air. We see its legacy everywhere. We see it in global boardrooms. The principles of Bushido heavily influenced Japan's post-war economic miracle, and today leaders around the world study the samurai to learn how to build resilient, fiercely loyal teams and lead with unshakable integrity. We see it in martial arts dojos across the globe. Millions of people step onto mats every day to practice judo, kendo, or karate. They aren't just learning how to throw a punch, they are learning the do, the way. They are learning respect, self-control, and honor. Most importantly, we see it in our own personal development. People look to the samurai spirit not to learn how to fight, but to learn how to live. How do you face the brutal battles of modern life, whether it is a health crisis, financial ruin, or the loss of a loved one? You face it with the quiet dignity, the absolute self-control, and the heroic courage of a samurai. The truth about the samurai is that they were deeply flawed, deeply human beings. They were born in the blood of civil war and refined in the quiet halls of peace. But their philosophy survived because it points to the absolute highest ideals of human potential. You do not need a katana to practice the way of the warrior. You don't need a lord to serve. In the modern world, your sword is your integrity. Your armor is your character. And just like the samurai standing beneath the cherry blossoms centuries ago, it is entirely up to you to keep that sword sharp, keep it clean, and be ready to draw it in the service of what is right. Thank you.